Welcome to the What to Play podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Hebert. Lucas was unable to be here today due to some prior commitments, so I'll be going solo once again. So, in the NFL, when you get to week 9, week 10, that's when people start saying it's halfway through the NFL season. The NFL is in high gear, whatever they term it as. Most teams, they're in a good spot, and then the couple teams, you say, okay, they have no chance to make it, and then they find a way to somehow get back into it because things happen. You don't know how to explain it. The best way to explain it is the unimaginable happen. That could happen. You don't know. You never know. You look at the NFC West. No one expected the NFC West to be 3 teams 4-4, 1 team 4-5, and you're saying the third team cannot be San Francisco. And it is. Somehow. Doesn't make sense. Just is. It's called the NFL. You gotta love it. So let's begin with the Cowboys at Falcons. Falcons were favored by 2.5. They ended up winning the game 27-20. And it's not that Atlanta played horrible. Atlanta actually played really well. Didn't turn the ball over. Had a good offense. But it's more indicative of how the Cowboys play than how Atlanta plays. Okay? Because Kirk Cousins was great. 3 touchdowns. And the run game was awesome. Bijan Robinson had a touchdown. That run game with Robinson and Tyler Algier is just, it's unstoppable. You can't stop it. The offensive line, the defense is a little suspect at times, but they got pressure. The thing that I took mostly from this game was just this Cowboys team is a shell of itself in so many ways. They don't pass block well, they don't run block well. They went against a team that only had 6 sacks the entire year and had 2 sacks in the first quarter. How does that happen? Legit, at one point, Greg Olsen's like, Dak Prescott's running for his life. He's running for his life. There is nothing he's supposed to do. So he's missing simple things. Like he missed one of the wide receivers on an open wheel route early in the game because he's just so scared from this offensive line. They have not protected him. He's pressured on almost every play, and when he's not, he's getting the ball getting in his hand at a very quick pace. Their run game is non-existent. They don't run the ball. They've tried. They can't. They can't do it. It's not like they don't attempt to do it. They can't do it. They absolutely 100% cannot run the football consistently. They will have a drive where they run the ball really well. And then they will have a drive that they can't get anything on the ground. They can't move the guy. They can't move defensive linemen back. The quarterback has to make a man miss. The running back has to make a man miss directly in the line of fire every time. It's impossible. The offensive line is bad. The wide receivers outside of CeeDee Lamb don't consistently get open and help your quarterback out. And don't reward your quarterback if he does miss you by a little bit. It has to be perfect. The separation is not there. He's throwing the ball into such tight windows, it's hard to catch these passes. Like, it's too tight for him to throw that football. You have to open it up a little bit and give him some time. And he'll find the guys, it's just you gotta help him. And then on defense, they are terrible. Actually, let's continue with the offense. They get into the red zone. They are terrible in red zone. They don't score a lot. They're 42% in the red zone, I think it said. It's probably worse than that now. 42% in the red zone. So that means you have to score outside the red zone more often than not, which is impossible if your team doesn't want to take big shots down the field. This team relies so much on yards after the catch, they are unable to get yards after the catch. They're tackled immediately because they can't get separation. There's an inability to score in the red zone. They can't run the ball in the red zone. They can't throw the ball in the red zone. They're turning the ball over in the red zone. These are things that are happening at an alarming rate. They're being forced to take field goals, or they're turning the ball over, or they're making mistakes. They're taking penalties to take them out of field goal range or make it a third and forever near the goal line. It's impossible. There's too many things going on. And that's the offensive struggles. The defensive struggles, it's as the same, if not worse. They can't get pressure without Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. They can't stop the run consistently. They can't do it. They can't defend the pass. They don't tackle well. And if you replay the stuff I said last year, it was a lot of the same things. It doesn't just say, okay, Dan Quinn was the savior of the world. It wasn't. They had a hard time to tackle. They had a hard time in red zone. They had a hard time to defend the pass, especially in the later years. They couldn't run the ball and stop the run. They still have that issue. It's not just, okay, one coordinator is going to fix this, because it hasn't been fixed. They have to blitz to get pressure consistently, and they lose positioning. The guys who are consistently banged up at the same level, so it's impossible to really have the same guys in at the same time. And then they're terrible in the red zone. They're terrible. They can't stop a pass in the red zone. They can't stop a run in the red zone. Like, they can't. They can't do anything. They can't make it stressful for a quarterback in a red zone situation. The Cowboys are forced to take field goals, but the other teams are able to get touchdowns. It's impossible to win games that way. It just is. It takes almost, if you really go through the whole thing, it takes 5 field goals to get 15 points. It takes 2 touchdowns to get 14. It's not the same. It's just not. If it takes nearly triple the amount of times to score and get 15 points compared to you only need to go score 2 touchdowns and you got 14, it's not the same. You put so much pressure on your offense if you can't stop the other team, and you put so much pressure on your defense if you can't get anything going on offense. It's how it works. It's a symbiotic relationship. And if you can't do your job one way, it's not going to work the other way. It's just not. It won't. There's no explanation that is better than that. But to come back full circle here, you saw it in this game. The amount of times that a Falcons receiver would catch a ball and a Cowboys defender was unable to tackle. Or the amount of times that the Falcons would run the ball and the Cowboys defender was unable to tackle. It's not a good enough team at this point in time. Now, maybe something changes and they can get a couple wins, and then they start and seeing what happens with Philadelphia and Washington. If they start sliding, then maybe you can make this a race. But until they do it, it's a really big ask. And you gotta hope that Micah Parsons comes back soon. DeRon Bland comes back soon. DeMarcus Lawrence comes back soon. And there's a few other guys that hopefully can go through it. We'll have to wait and see on that. But good win by the Falcons all around. They made some great plays. They made it close. For whatever reason, the Falcons only play one-score games. I don't know why. They have a lot of cardiac tendencies. Tendency. I don't know why they do that, but they are. That has always been their kryptonite, is they have to play one-score games. They can't win by 20. They can only win by 3, 7, and maybe 10 at the highest. Don't know. It is what it is. But a good win nonetheless. Next up, the Patriots at the Titans. The Titans were 3.5-point favorites. They actually did not cover, but the Titans did win 20-17. Look, the Titans are kind of a middle road team right now. They have Calvin Ridley. They have Tyler Boyd. But they're playing with backup quarterbacks right now. Mason Rudolph has played. Will Levis is expected to start this week. But at some point, you have to get a much better offense. You have to be able to run the ball better. And they did in this game. Tony Pollard is running his tail off. He's playing great football. He leads the league in yards after contact. Figures. He's done that for his whole career. Yards after contact, he is impossible to tackle. Because he just makes you miss and he makes everybody else miss. It's just that offensive line is so banged up, and they're trying to find who can play right tackle, who can play consistent left tackle. It's a process. We've talked about this. Excuse me. But the Patriots are also in that process, just at a different stage. They're starting anew. They have a new coach. They have a new young rookie quarterback. They have an offensive line, a new offensive line, and young running backs. You're expecting the aches and pains of this. There's going to be a lot of issues. It's okay. Can you find something that makes this work? I think they can. How? Well, with the promise that Drake May shows, and some of the promise of the wide receiver show, it can be a good thing to start. But you have to be willing to play together. And that's something that it takes time. But even in these losses, you're starting to see the Patriots start playing better together. And that's a good thing. They just lost this game. That's just what happens. It's a young team. It's a young team, a young coach. It's a process. Don't worry about it. They gotta get more involved. It's okay. Now, a team that I don't know if they're okay or not is the Denver Broncos. They played the Ravens. The Ravens destroyed everything in their path. They were 41-10 was the score. The Ravens were favored by 9.5. They destroyed the Broncos. And the Broncos' biggest concern was they were top 10 defense. They hadn't played anyone, though. They had played a lot of teams. And I always say this, and I've said this, and you can all recite it. It's the same thing I've said. It's not who you face, but when you face them. Because sometimes it can be an injury, or they have lost a couple games in a row and they're not feeling good about themselves. You can get an edge on them by doing that. Or maybe they're really healthy, or they have won a couple games in a row and they are feeling themselves, and then good things start to happen to them. Football's very mental. It's 90, as the old saying goes, and it's pretty much any sport. The sport is 90% mental, 10% physical. It is what it is. If you believe you will have success, and you are showing that belief is constantly growing, physically, you have to do your part, but mentally, it's all there. And you will be successful. That's how these sports work. The Ravens show they are mentally strong. They will run the ball. They will play great offense. Their defense, I don't know. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but at the time, they played great football. They really did. The Broncos, look, don't take too much out of this, okay? You played a really good team, a really balanced team. They can throw the football. They can run the football. You have Lamar Jackson. They have a lot of eye candy. And what I mean by that is they have a lot of people that are able to do this, and do this. For an example, you have Zay Flowers, a young, fast wide receiver. They brought in Deontay Johnson, a young, fast wide receiver. Nelson Aguilar, not so young, but still really fast. The two tight ends, Likely and Andrews, can both block and both go out for passes. You have basically 3 running backs in the backfield in Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, and Lamar Jackson. They can do whatever they want. They will throw it to the running back. They will throw it deep. They will do this. They will do that. They'll have Lamar run. They'll do this. They'll do this. They find a way to win games because of their formula. Their formula works. Now, the times that they don't win, it's because someone either played really bad or they got away from their formula, which they have done, and they overthink it. Get out of your head. Just go play. Go have some fun and just go play. But the Broncos have to be okay with that. You gotta understand, look, there's a lot going on. And, oh wait, we play Kansas City. That's a big game for us. We don't feel as good as we did, but we also know it's a divisional game. It's Chiefs week. Let's go to war. There's an old saying that the late Marty Schottenheimer used to say. When he was the coach of the Chiefs, he said, it's Raider week. It's all we had to talk about. No one needed to know what that meant. Everyone knew exactly what that meant. It's Raider week. It's different than any other week. When we go out there, we're going to play football, but it's going to be nasty. It's going to be a lot of fights. There's going to be a lot of threats. There's going to be a lot of this. There's going to be a lot of that. Do what you're supposed to do, and we'll be fine. And do a little bit more at the same time. It was a whole thing. Broncos have to have that mentality heading into this game. Just try to put the Ravens game so far out of your mind and continue on. Another team that needs to do that is the Green Bay Packers. As the Detroit Lions went to Lambeau in the rain and defeated the Green Bay Packers 24-14. This is the 3rd consecutive win for the Lions at Lambeau. You have to go back to 2022, which was the first win they had. Remember, that game, 2022, they were out of the playoffs. Remember, they started 1-6. They were 1-6 after 7 weeks. Everything was a disaster. They ended up running the table. They get to the last week of the year. They need Seattle to lose, and Seattle ends up winning. And Detroit has nothing to play for, but Green Bay does. If they win, they're in. Remember this? And the players thought, we'll be at the stadium. So we don't know. So they had all the TVs on. And then they see the Seahawks win. And the Lions go and say, well, we could either bench all of our stars. It's not worth it. We're not going to move on. We're not going to go to the playoffs. Or we could go play all our stars and make sure we take them down with us. And that was the turning point. Really, I think that was the turning point of that team. They went from, hey, we had a great season. We got to pack it up, though, and put all the underneath guys on the field instead. We're not going to play our stars. They could have done that, and no one would have held anything against them. They chose the other option. They chose the other option, said, no, yes, we're out of it, but we don't care. We're going to go over there and we're going to beat them. And they did. I mean, they did every trick play in the book. They did hook and ladders. They were running flea flickers. They were doing everything. It's what you do as a good team. And since that time, they have won in Lambeau. You have to go all the way back to 2021, when the last time the Packers beat the Lions in Lambeau. That's a crazy thing to think about. That's insane to think about. But that's how far this team has come. So the point is, you play this game. Jordan Love is banged up. He has a groin issue. He's playing, but he really can't move. It's raining. You can't really throw the football. And then all you start seeing is these running backs start taking over. Montgomery, Gibbs, Jacobs. They were getting 100 yards in the first half. And then the Lions just started playing extreme football. Again, flea flickers, hook and ladders. The nature of this team. It is what it is. It's unreal at times. It's what they do. They end up winning this game 24-17. 24-14, excuse me. The Packers end up missing a couple kicks that could have made this 24-21 or 24-17. It can't happen. It cannot happen. But at the end of the day, the Lions go off. They play. They embody their head coach. They embody their coordinators. And they will kick your tail any day of the week. Because that's how this team is built. And it's old school football. And any team who plays them hates it. But any fan who their team's not playing it loves to watch it. It's how the Lions play football. And next up, the last game of week 9 that we had was Bucks at Chiefs. Chiefs winning the game in overtime 30-24. This definitely was a scare for the Chiefs. I saw this thing and people said, for the way the Chiefs are playing, Matt Nagy should be a head coach in the next year. And I say, why? 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 Why would he be the head coach? Why would he be a head coach? Let me try to explain this to you. That's not a good team. That is not a good team. Offensively, they are a mess. They are a mess. Okay, they are really bad on offense. They almost lost to Tampa Bay, who Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were not playing. This was bad. Baker Mayfield nearly won this game with Sterling Shepard, making incredible play after incredible play. If anything, I took more of the Bucks, even without their stars, still look like a good team. And that's scary. That's what I took up from it. From the Chiefs, I just looked at them saying, at some point, they're going to have to find a way to win a game by more than 8 points, 10 points, but it really shouldn't even be that close. Now, with the NFL trade deadline happening, we had a few trades that they stood out a little more than the rest. So let's get into it. So the Jets traded Mike Williams, finally, to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 5th-round pick in 2025. Mike Williams was not being used. Okay? He was the 4th maybe fifth guy with the Jets before Davante Adams got there. Then he became the fourth, fifth, sixth guy or something like that. It was weird. And Malachi Corley was playing ahead of him in the Thursday night game against Houston. I think Mike Williams at this time is better than Malachi Corley, but I digress. Excuse me. So he gets traded to Pittsburgh. I can't deal with everyone saying, "Oh, I'm shocked." Like, no one's shocked by this. We knew this was gonna happen. It wasn't a matter of if; it was a matter of when and where was he going, and that's what happened. Now the Jets were busy, as the Jets also got Preston Smith. They traded with the Green Bay Packers, got Preston Smith for a 2025 7th round pick. Preston Smith wasn't being used, and he had asked for his release, or trade, I should say. And the Packers said, you've been a good soldier, why not? Found the right trade partner, offloaded him, got a pick. Okay. It just happened to be the Steelers. This is what good teams do. You go get a player who will help the locker room, but can help you on the field too, and you say, why not? And the Steelers believe in that. You're a good player, but you can help also in the locker room. We need that. We need leadership. They believe in it, and it works nearly every time when they do it. Some teams should follow that kind of logic. I know some teams don't. Now, Preston Smith was not the only Smith traded this week. Actually, on the same day, just earlier in the day, the Browns traded his brother, Zadarius. Zadarius Smith traded along with a 2026 7th round pick to the Lions for a 2025 5th round pick and a 2026 6th round pick. We knew the Lions were looking for help. We also kind of penciled in Zadarius Smith. It was just a matter of when does this trade get done? And it ended up getting done the day of the deadline in the morning. Zadarius Smith is an old country song as it goes. I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm once as good as I ever was. That's kind of what Zadarius Smith is. He's not going to be like the Green Bay guy where he was getting sacks constantly. Yeah, it's not what he is anymore. He'll get sacks. He'll make plays. He's a great run defender. That's really what you need. He's a great run defender. Plus, you get to spurn the Packers and the Vikings and basically at the same time bring in a guy who played for them, who can tell them a lot. Why not? Why not? You felt you were that close to losing the game against Minnesota. Why not? Bring him in. See what happens. Now, a trade, it didn't make a lot of sense. Not because the guy who got traded, but because the pick that he was traded for. The Dallas Cowboys made a trade with the Carolina Panthers as the Panthers traded Jonathan Mingo, a 2022 draft pick, to the Cowboys for a 4th round pick in 2025. Now, when I saw this trade happen, I was alarmed, not because of the player, but because of the pick that they gave up. They could have given him the 6 And that would have been fine. That would have been pretty much what he was going for anyway. He was the 4th, 5th wide receiver of the Panthers, of course, you know? But instead, they go with a 4th. And a lot of people have it in their mind that the Cowboys got fleeced. They got fleeced. And they were. They were fleeced if it doesn't work out. Now, I hope, again, like I said, I said this on the NFL World YouTube channel when it happened on Wednesday. I said it on Rumble. I'll say it here. I'll say it on this podcast. I'll say it wherever you want me to say it. If he plays well and he shuts me up, great. Terrific. I hope he has like 10 catches on Sunday against the Eagles and he scores 3 touchdowns and they win the game because of Jonathan Mingo. I can't wait to see that happen. I want to see that happen. But until it happens, to me, the Cowboys didn't know what they were doing. It was, we have to be the best team. And we have to fix the players that aren't very good right now, but had great traits in college. Or had great traits that we liked coming out of the draft. There used to be a saying from Cowboys people. It was in the 90s, and then it bridged over to about 2007, and then it changed because the Cowboys ended up changing places of where they did their off-season program. But they used to call it Second Chance Valley Ranch. Let me say it again. Second Chance Valley Ranch. Because what they would do is they would go and pick up a player who had some issues either in college or in the pros, but they liked coming out, but just had some issues and brought him in, thinking that would fix the issue. And sometimes it did. The best example is Charles Haley. But that wasn't because he wasn't a good player. That was just because he was crazy. He was a crazy person. It was just, that's just who he is. It's okay. But it's a different kind of person. But that's kind of what the Cowboys have done for the last 20 years. And it has worked a little bit, but it's failed a lot more. And that's kind of what I'm saying here. It's worked a little bit, but it's failed a lot more. That's kind of, now maybe they got this right. Maybe they got it right. I hope they did. I hope he shuts me up. I hope he plays great football. I do. But at some point, you can't keep looking in the past in 1990 and saying, that's how we got there. Yes, Jack, I understand that. That was also a long time ago. You haven't gotten there in a long time. You have to make adjustments to this plan. These things are outdated a little bit. And the thing that frustrates me about the Cowboys is this too. They'll go in this offseason and they'll look at it and they see Micah needs to be paid. There's a couple other guys we want to keep around. Yet, Dak and CD signed big contracts. We can't afford them. It's not true. It's not true at all. In fact, if the Cowboys want to, and they don't make a move for the rest of the year, the money they have, which is about $20 million, $26 million that they have right now, will roll over till next year. And they can make another $30 million by changing Dak's contracts a little bit and CeeDee Lamb's contract a little bit by moving money into the future. And by doing that, they have created $100 million for next year. Whether it's this coaching staff or another coaching staff, they will have $100 million next year. But they're going to go and say, we don't have the money. That's what they're going to do. Because they want people to keep talking about it. And the more and more that we have shows that talk about them, the more and more they say, hey, we're getting our point though. That's all they care about. They care about being a marketing group. There are people, there's 53 people on the players of that team that play every time. There's 55 players play on are active in some way on the team bus to play on a Sunday game. Total of 100 people, consistently 100, maybe even a little over 100 people are there on a Sunday, every Sunday. And yet, we have to listen to Jerry Stephen Jones say, well, we don't have enough money to pay them. Incorrect. And it's an outdated response. It's that simple. Another trade that happened, let's move on to another team in the NFC East, was the Washington Commanders traded for Marshawn Lattimore. The Saints traded Marshawn Lattimore and a 2025 fifth round pick to the Commanders for a 2025 third round pick, fourth round pick, and a sixth round pick. This is a great haul for Marshawn Lattimore. An older guy, still good, skins on the wall, as the old saying would go. But the Commanders also needed a guy. They need some help in that secondary. Bringing him in, very productive guy. It's not a bad thing. He's had a hamstring issue this year, a little bit. So if anything, that's where it goes. Now, we have to go back to Dallas for a little bit here. They had some injuries pop up in the Atlanta game. Woo. It's light over here. Woo. Okay. So we had CeeDee Lamb had an AC joint issue. He's expected to go, but I've had that injury before. It does not feel good. It feels like shocks go down your shoulder. He says it feels much better, and he'll be okay, and he's going to try and go. So, and you need him out there because you don't have anyone else that can really do what CeeDee Lamb does. But the other injury, the more, I guess I want to say concerning injury, was Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott suffered a partial avulsion in his hamstring. What that means is, and I used my elbow, but I'll basically describe it like this. It's when your hamstring, which is attached to your bone, partially comes off. Tears, actually. And you can either have surgery, which would end his season, or you could have, just hope it heals, but it takes like 4 to 6 weeks to heal. And it's not 100% 4 to 6 weeks. It could be a little more than that. So, I think what Dak is looking at is this. If we are alive come Thanksgiving, or beginning of December, I should say. If we are alive, we still have a chance to win, then okay. But if we don't, I'll get the surgery. I think that's what he's looking at. I think he's looking at saying, okay, what happens if Dallas gets on a roll here? We get into December, and they've gotten a couple wins, but also the Eagles and Commanders start losing some games. then anything's up in the air, and we can then I could try to come back in December or January, But I don't think he'll do it if there's no chance. If they are 3-7 before Thanksgiving, no. But if they get to Thanksgiving and we're looking up at this thing and we're saying, whoa, they're 6-5 before they play the Giants on Thanksgiving. Maybe. But if they're, and depending on what happens in Washington or in Philadelphia, maybe. You don't know. So it all has to be talked about. All right, an update. I had this written down, but actually, we're going to go a little to the west, to the NFC West specifically, as Kyle Shanahan has said, and I just got a notification saying it. Christian McCaffrey is expected to make his regular season debut against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now remember, he had bilateral Achilles tendonitis, which is like a fancy way of saying your Achilles is inflamed in both of your legs. That's what he has. And the hope is that he'll be fine and he'll be ready to roll. But it kept him out for 10 weeks, or for 9 weeks, I should say. He came back, practiced. He's expected to go against Tampa. Let's see what he can do. Let's see how he helps this offense out. This offense has been kind of up and down. So let's see what he's got. I'm assuming also Jordan Mason does play quite a bit. And we will have predictions in a minute, But I want to bring this up. The last thing was the Panthers, of all the things that have been bad for the Panthers this year, they signed one of the better guys to a long-term contract. As the Panthers extend Chuba Hubbard 4 years, $33.2 million. Last year of his rookie contract, get it done. Just get it done. Don't worry about it. You don't start this contract until next year anyway, so who cares? It was a good move. The Panthers are starting to look up for him a little bit. Sign him, sign Hubbard. Bryce Young has played a little bit better. He's actually going to get the start in Munich. So, why not? See what happens. Against a lonely Giant team, why not? I just want to make sure I get everything. Oh, hang on. Okay. So our first game actually happened on Thursday night, so we'll kind of recap it quickly here. Bengals versus Ravens. Ravens won the game 35-34. The Ravens, I don't know how to describe them, okay? It's like they're not good against the pass, but it's strangely bad. I don't know how to explain these things with the Ravens, to be honest with you. They really struggled. Chase Brown could run the football all night. That's something that they've been really good at defending, and they couldn't really stop Chase Brown. Joe Burrow was running around making plays. He took a lot of hits, but he was running around making plays. And on the final drive, you have him going down the field. Jamar Chase had a history-making night, 264 yards for Jamar Chase. He was all over the place. Joe Burrow, like I said, he took a lot of hits. And Clete Blakeman was very involved. His officiating crew was very involved in this game, especially in the last drive. Except not when they needed to be. I'll get to that in a second. They had a pass interference, I think it was. No, actually, no, it was a hold they had. They had a hold. Marlon Humphrey kind of grabs and throws Yosivash on one play near midfield. And then they had a roughing the passer play, which great job by Joe Burrow. Just get it out there. Just fire it over there and see if he can make a play, and which he did. So there was that. And then there was the play. There was a offsides from Van Noy. He lined up offsides. Then they score. But the 2-point conversion. Now, let me specify what's going on. There's a little cat and mouse. The Bengals, who were aggressive all night, went out there for 2. And we would have all criticized Zach Taylor if he would have kicked the field goal. That you've been aggressive all night. Why are you taking the field goal? Why are you taking the extra point? Now they have a chance to win it with one of the best kickers in NFL history, in Justin Tucker, who had missed an extra point last night. But that's why you go for 2. But the problem was they were just trying to get a free play. They called timeout. Zach Taylor ran down the sideline to call timeout, but then they went for 2 anyway. So I was a little surprised they went for 2 anyway. I thought they were just taking the 1 at that point, but they said, no, let's go. So they did. And there was a little bit of, and the Ravens didn't get caught with this all night, really. It was just a once in a while. But on the final play, the 2-point conversion the Bengals had, the tight end of the Bengals gets held. Gesicki, he gets held in the slot on the left side. He gets held. And then Burrow gets contacted directly in the head and grabbed in his face mask. So technically they missed 3, but they only counted it as 2. But it was still missed, and that's what lost the Bengals, I think. So, again, the Ravens get out of this, but at some point, you can't just expect officiating mistakes every week. It's just not going to happen. Too many times we talk about how the Falcons are cardiac as much as they can be. The Ravens are the same way. That if they play a good team, they can be cardiac at times and make a lot of mistakes that you don't expect. And that's a big thing. Next up, in a preview of Week 10, is Patriots at Bears. Bears here by 6.5. I'm taking the Bears to win this. Bears are just a better team right now. But the pressure that they can instill on a really bad offensive line and a really young quarterback in Drake May, it's going to be overwhelming for a young guy. So I'm going to say the Bears win. Don't know if they cover or not, but Bears do cover, in fact, but Bears win. I'm going to say 24-10. 24-10. Next up, Broncos versus Chiefs. Chiefs favored by 8. If there's any game that the Chiefs may lose, it might be this one. Because the Broncos are going to be ready to roll. And I don't know how this Chiefs offense is going to look. You had a lot go your way in the Tampa game. Now you're at home again against a division rival. This is going to be tough. I'm going to take the Broncos only because I question this offense of the Chiefs. I question it. If it doesn't show up soon, it may not show up at all. And it took till last year, remember, for the last week of the regular season for them to really show up. So I'm going to take the Broncos to win. Strange game though, 24-22, just because these two teams, that's kind of how they operate. Next up, 49ers at Bucks. Bucks get +6. I'm taking the Niners. CMC is back. Christian McCaffrey is ready to roll. Hopefully that fixes the offense. Defense is still, we don't know, but I'm going to take the Niners. In a strange game, I think, 28-24 Niners. Next up, Eagles at Cowboys. +7 for the Cowboys. Backup quarterback in Cooper Rush. Potentially Trey Lance playing. Injuries. Micah Parsons is expected to play unless barring any setback. And the Cowboys need him. The Eagles are a little banged up. Let's see if A.J. Brown plays. He should play. But I think those things are a factor. I would not be surprised if Dallas wins this game. Because for whatever reason, Dallas and Philadelphia always split. And I think the same happens here. I think Dallas finds a way to win in a very strange game. They win this game. I've had a weird score before, but I'm gonna stick with it. 26-20, Cowboys. And final game, Sunday Night Football, Lions at Texans, +3.5 for the Texans. I got the Lions. I'm sorry, Texans. I really am. But what is about to happen is an unstoppable force hitting a very movable object. Like, that's what's going on. I'm sorry. The run offense. The Lions can beat you any way they want. They can beat you in the passing game, beat you in the running game, beat you in the kicking game, beat you in the punt return game, the kick return game. They can beat you any way. They really can, and it's like a challenge for them. Every week it's a challenge of them going and saying, we are going to do this. And they do it. And you're like, how did they do that? Every week. And they win a different way. It's not the same way. It's kind of like looking at pictures from different angles. There's always something different. Always something. That's kind of how the Lions play football. There's always something different. When they played the Cowboys, it was a complete effort. Then they played the Titans. Remember, they played the Titans. And they just beat them. It wasn't the offense. It wasn't even the defense. It was the kick returns, the punt returns. They had 200-something yards on punt return. That was insane. They do this every time. They could legit, if they want to be like, if you go and say, okay, Lions, you can't wear cleats. You have to wear like tennis shoes. Okay, fine. You have to catch the ball with your feet. Okay, fine. It's a challenge. And they somehow succeed at them. Same thing's going to happen here. I don't think the Texans have enough firepower. I don't think the Texans play well enough either. But Lions roll in this game. 38-14. And that is it for the What I Play podcast. Let me know in the comment section who you have winning this week. And also, who is your NFL? Who is the leader? Who's the best team in the NFL this year? And put it in the comment section. For NFL World and for the What I Play podcast, I am Jake Beaver. Out.